Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual presentation, Building Sustainable Organizations, Making a Difference and Measuring Success. My name is Meredith Outerson, and I'm with ERG, a contractor supporting Region 2 for this presentation. I'll be providing webinar technical support today. All attendees have been muted to minimize background noise, and this webinar will be recorded. If you have any audio or GoToWebinar issues, please type them into the questions box in the right-hand corner of your screen, and I will help you troubleshoot the problem. If you have a question for the presenters, please also go ahead and type that into the questions box as well. We'll hold questions until the end of all of the presentations, and then we'll do a combined Q&A at the end. So now, without further ado, let's get started. I'll turn it over to Susan Schultz with EPA.
Good morning, and welcome to our webinar on building sustainable organizations, making a difference and measuring success. I'm Susan Schultz, the Acting Branch Chief for the Chemicals and Multimedia Programs Branch in EPA Region 2. You may know that Region 2 covers New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. You may not know that last April 2019, EPA realigned in order to create the same divisional structure for each of our 10 regional offices. The divisions are the same, but the branches within each division are different. So it's good for you to know that here in Region 2, the pollution prevention, materials management, and sustainability program efforts are housed in the Chemicals and Multimedia Programs branch, and our branch is in the Land, Chemicals, and Redevelopment Division. Today's webinar explores the theme of building sustainable organizations, making a difference and measuring success. Let me first say that I believe all businesses will be facing new challenges based on current events worldwide. Organizations will need to think strategically about how to incorporate sustainability as part of the organizational culture, to embrace leadership skills for sustainability, to learn from best practices, and to measure progress towards achieving your sustainability strategic goals. For today's webinar, we're very fortunate to have a group of practitioners who are dedicated to the promotion of sustainability across a diverse range of organizations. We'll view their accomplishments, and yes, their challenges, through their efforts to make organizations more sustainable, either at the level of a particular operation in a facility, within a consumer-oriented multinational or corporation, within small to medium-sized enterprises, or through a statewide collaborative effort between governmental entities. Pollution prevention is an important approach for creating more sustainable organizations. By reducing pollution at the source, we're able to conserve natural resources, efficiently use production inputs, limit the environmental and public health threats associated with that production and consumption, and ultimately enhance organizational competitiveness. At the same time, putting these practical efforts into place encourages deeper organizational resilience in the long run. In order to build more sustainable organizations, we need a marketplace and policy framework that supports efforts to promote sustainability. We need companies to encourage transformational leadership among their ranks, to implement best practices, to measure success, and to communicate their challenges and results as they move along a continuum of more sustainable organizations. The EPA National Pollution Prevention Program supports state, university, and other technical assistance providers that are on the forefront of assisting businesses through our P2 and source reduction assistance grants. EPA Region 2 also provides sustainable materials management grants, which in collaboration with our leading partners, encourage life cycle thinking, the best management practices for P2, and improved materials management, which ultimately lead to efficient, innovative, and sustainable organizations. On behalf of Region 2's Pollution Prevention and Sustainable Materials Management Programs and our national office, thank you to everyone for your attendance today and for your commitment to sustainable organizations. Walter?
Thank you very much, Susan. I appreciate your introductory remarks. Um, my name is Walter Shep. Before starting, let me mention some important deadlines associated with our pollution prevention and source reduction assistance grants. For those considering the submission of a 2020 application, be aware that deadlines are approaching as follows. For the Pollution Prevention Grant Program, RFA applications are due by April 30th, 2020. That is a new date that's been set due to the ongoing COVID virus situation. Again, April 30th, 2020. For source reduction assistance grants, the RFA applications are due by May 15th, 2020. That again is a new date. Please make sure you contact your regional P2 coordinator if you have any questions on these competitive funding opportunities, as well as to learn about any changes in submission deadlines. In addition to the upcoming P2 grant deadlines, Region 2 has posted a request for applications for an upcoming grant opportunity related to sustainable materials management. This grant seeks to support training and education in projects that support the sustainable management of construction and demolition debris and of organic waste for our stakeholders in EPA Region 2. For more information and to access this RFA, please go to the GrantsGov site and search the opportunity number SMMS that you see on the slide. And note that the applications are due by April 17th, 2020, which is coming up very quickly. In addition, since a number of our speakers, and in particularly Richard Grossett's presentation, will focus on energy, please be aware of the EPA Energy Star program, which provides the tools small businesses need to achieve energy savings. If you're interested in becoming an Energy Star partner or looking for ways to achieve energy savings in your business, be sure to search the Energy Star Small Business website. It's a useful resource. Today's theme, and I think with all the ongoing uncertainty in our environment now, we can surely say that we live in an age where increased uncertainty is very prevalent. It is a time and age where environmental problems are exceedingly complex and where the social processes and systems that surround these problems are also complex. This makes decision making more and more complicated, and decisions must be made in uncertain environments. With that in mind, today's corporate managers must understand the power of environmental issues and shift their mindset from a focus on management to strategy, a strategy that's deeply integrated into the corporate culture of their organizations. Looking a little bit back over time, and when I was thinking about preparing for the webinar, what I noted is that back in 1998, the World Resources Institute lamented that only 16% of business schools had incorporated business and environment subjects into their curricula, and that students did not consider the environment a key factor in business decision making. By shortly afterwards, Andrew Hoffman, a leading academic thinker, in 2000 shattered that way of thinking in academic and business circles when he articulated the relevance of environment in the context of competitive strategy. In fact, he stated at the time, environmental strategy and economic strategy are now inextricably intertwined. What he observed is that managers, from his perspective, needed to be strategic environmental managers, and that they must ask many questions in relationship to their organization. That involved changing their mindset. They must ask questions like, what are the sources of environmental pressures? What are the corporate implications of these environmental issues? What are the trajectories of these changes? And what are my partners and competitors doing? He argued that businesses must think opportunistically and cease innovative offsets consistent with competitive strategies that raise the organization's capacity for environmental improvement. They needed to be proactive. Ironically, by the year 2018, following his work between 2000 and 2018, the same Andrew Hoffman was declaring a new age for leading corporations, actively transforming markets to make it more sustainable. This is what he called the next phase of sustainability. Another survey done in 2018 demonstrated how, in many ways, mindsets had changed, at least within the younger generation and those who were to assume the leadership positions of the future. 88% of business school students thought that learning about social and environmental issues in business was a priority. And 67% of business college students wanted to incorporate environmental sustainability into their future jobs. So we see a long-term social trajectory where sustainability is becoming more and more important in all facets of life. That said, at the same time, things were not perfect. He said, Andrew Hoffman said, we're not changing course. We are reaching limits. We are approaching a crisis, and transformation is needed. In the context of what we're experiencing now, we kind of have a visceral feeling for the need for transformation. And we also have a visceral, real sense that affects all our lives of a crisis. And he called for, at the time, reconceptualizing our organization models and organizations, whether it be through operations, partnerships, transparency, how we relate to government, and how we look at our business and consumption models. In addition to sustainability becoming a strategic imperative, we need to twin that, combine it with the concept of transformative leadership. And the basic premise that I'd like to leave you with, although the theories of transformative leadership are complex and many, and also multidimensional, is that the basic premise of leadership is that everyone can lead. And that in particular, in times or in places and times where there are transformative moments, everybody contributes to, and in fact co-creates, that collaborates together to create the world we live in, whether we're conscious of that or not. So in addition to strategy, we now know the importance of leadership. And we know that leadership is a quality that we can all obtain, demonstrate, own, and earn again. And as Montouri and Donnelly say in 2018, every interaction is a reflection of how we lead our lives. And we need to ask ourselves, what type of world are we creating through our thoughts, beliefs, actions, and interactions? I think our speakers today will demonstrate through their presentations the importance of thinking strategically about sustainability and about how that enhances their organizational resiliency. I think you will also see examples of transformational leaders that have characteristics in the way they go about their business that encourages us to move along our journey towards sustainability that is ever so importantly needed now and going in the future. And now we'll learn a little bit more about today's presenters, who are strategic and transformational leaders. Today's webinar will feature 4 professional practitioners and leaders who will present on their work to date and in progress. At the end of all these presentations, we'll attempt to answer any questions that come up. This will be followed up by a short questionnaire to identify other webinar topics that you may be interested in the future, and finally, some closing remarks. Today's contributions are being recorded, and we hope both the recording and slides will be posted with permission from the presenters online at a later date. As a reminder, please consider submitting your questions throughout the presentations to the GoToWebinar box, and we'll try to address those questions during the Q&A session following all 4 presentations. If we're not able to get to your question, please do not hesitate to reach me by email at my email address, shep.walter@epa.gov. Today's speakers are strategic and transformational leaders. They represent a variety of organizations who are wrestling with a sustainability transition. In particular, our pollution prevention program has worked in the past with the New Jersey Sustainable Small Business Development Centers and their collaborative partner, the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, on a grant project that you'll be hearing about and that we take great pride in seeing that work as it's evolved. In addition, our Sustainable Materials Management Program has provided a grant to the Citizens Committee of New York City, working with Think Reuse consultants. Our Region 2 Technology, Transportation, and Radiation branch and our National Energy Star program is working with Con Edison's Energy Efficiency and Demand Management Program, featured today, in order to leverage each other's capabilities in energy efficiency and outreach to a wide variety of stakeholders, including residential customers, small businesses, grocery stores, and congregations. Working together, we're able to achieve a lot more than if we were working alone. Again, our speakers will represent a variety of examples of how strategy and leadership plays a role in different aspects of building a more sustainable world. I'd like to now go to our first speaker, and our first presenter will be Richard Grosset from Think Reuse Consultants. Rich is a noted sustainability consultant, social entrepreneur dedicated to providing consumers and businesses with viable alternatives to wasteful single-use food service products. He is recognized by the GBCI as a true zero-waste business advisor and associate. Rich has conducted extensive research into the restaurant and cafeteria and food service market, and has helped launch a reusable to-go container pilot program in a college setting and in workplace cafeterias. He will be presenting Think Reuse's work with the Citizens Committee for New York City and their pilot with a reusable to-go container program in a workplace cafeteria located in our region. I'll now hand over the presentation to Rich. And as a reminder, please submit all questions through the question box, and we will try to address them in our QA session. Rich, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your results, which I know you're just finishing up, and I've enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you about the work prior to this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter, and thanks to Susan and the EPA for inviting me to be here today. learning about the other panelists has been humbling. We're very much working at the micro level. I think that is an interesting perspective in light of the context of today's event. We're going to see some very interesting work at larger scales, and I am going to really get into the nitty-gritty of trying to make, excuse me, a change really on the ground in one setting and going through all the nitty-gritty. So hopefully all these together are of great interest to all of our attendees. With that, let me move forward. Oops. Here we go. Just some quick background before I get into the agenda. Think Reuse is really a kind of a consortium of a few consultants and waste reduction practitioners who are interested, particularly interested in food service packaging waste. And we have between us more than a decade of experience looking at this reusable to-go container issue, which I'll provide more background about. It's a very small niche area, but it's gaining a bit more attention in the last few years with all the attention on plastic pollution and circular economy and so forth. Just Walter already did a great job talking about me. I think the only really key thing is that I started working on reusable to-go container programs in 2011 as a graduate student at the University of Michigan. In fact, taking classes from and being advised by Professor Andrew Hoffman. So I appreciated that in your intro, Walter. And so since then, I've launched 4 pilot projects, including the project I'll talk about today. So I've learned quite a bit, and I'm happy to share all that knowledge. My biggest challenge today is sharing what is most valuable and educational in the time allotted, because I tend to go on and on this topic. As Walter mentioned, in 2018, EPA Region 2 awarded a Sustainable Materials Management Grant to Citizens Committee for New York City. Citizens Committee is a great organization focused on providing, they're a nonprofit focused on supporting impactful projects across New York City, including environmental and waste reduction projects. And so we were fortunate to work with them. EPA awarded them the grant, and Citizens Committee contracted with Think Reuse consultants, including myself, to implement the project. I was selected as the project manager and have been basically doing the bulk of the hours on this project. For context, it was a $50,000 grant to be used over the course of a year. So now I'm just going to try to set the stage quickly about disposable food service wares and reusable programs. There's a lot of information. I could talk forever, but I'm going to try to get through it in about 5 minutes. Hopefully you'll have the slides and recording as a reference later. I'm happy to also be contacted via email or phone for more information, but I usually get a lot of questions. So I just wanted to address some background before moving on to what we actually did. And then hopefully I'll still have about 10 minutes to go through our project, you know, what we did to find a pilot site, the results we've achieved to date, and then encouraging participation in the program at our workplace cafeteria, and then what's next for us to wrap up our grant project. Okay, so disposable food service wares. They go by many names, including food service disposables or single-use disposables. Kind of the easiest way to remember the types of products that we're talking about in this project. Think about the takeout and delivery products used by restaurants for food they've prepared on site. So this would be like your pizza boxes and hinged clamshell containers, your disposable coffee cups, as opposed to the food packaging you would typically find in the aisles of a grocery store. So we're not talking about your cereal boxes or ramen packages or whatever it might be. Depending on the industry report or who you're talking to, certain specific products may be included or excluded, but that's really the gist of it without getting into too much minutia. The market for food service disposables is estimated to be about 24.8 billion in the United States. That's actually up about 30% from 2016, which is sort of shocking, but maybe not if you think about, if you're in New York City and you've seen the increase in takeout and delivery activity in the last few years, it's not surprising. We estimate this comes out to about 700 billion disposable items per year in our country. This number comes from a study I was fortunate to be to work on last year with my colleague Ellie Moss. The Overbrook Foundation in New York City hired us to really study the disposable food service issue in New York and the US. And there's a link and the name of that report, which came out a few weeks ago in this slide. It's called The Dirty Truth About Disposable Foodware. I did a lot of the number crunching. Ellie did most of the great thinking, including the graphic on this slide, which shows the mismatched costs and benefits of food service disposables. This will be, we're looking at New York City specifically in this graphic, but you can see that most of these would apply anywhere else. We're looking at commercial and residential waste management to collect all the disposable products from restaurants and office buildings and our homes. In New York City, we estimate about $500 million a year from restaurants to purchase disposables. The plastic disposables account for maybe 1.3 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Then we have the lost material value of all those resources that are landfilled, the trees cut for the paper products, all these things you see on this balance, not including ecological harm in marine environments and so on when these things end up in our sewers and then out to sea or in creeks and then in rivers and the ocean. So, and all of this just for the benefit of a few minutes of maybe convenience. And my quick way to summarize this is that a majority of the benefits flow upstream to manufacturers and distributors, while the harder to quantify life cycle environmental and economic costs and externalities are passed on to governments, taxpayers, food service providers, nonprofits, and marine and terrestrial ecosystems. So I probably should have led with that. So next, I'm going to look at reusable models. So this is the up and coming alternative to the food service disposable products. Reusable products themselves come in so many shapes and sizes. I'm not going to cover that here, but more importantly is that those products need to be used over and over again to achieve the economic and environmental benefits relative to disposable products that's their whole purpose. So it's really the systems put in place to make sure they're reused that are the key. Thus far, two overarching models have emerged. The first is the bring your own. Simply put, that's when you bring your own coffee mug to a cafe or if you bring a container to a restaurant for leftovers. The other model we refer to as the exchange model because it involves the user exchanging a used container for one that has been cleaned in commercial facilities according to the relevant food and health codes. In this scenario, containers are typically owned by a restaurant or third party and usually involve some sort of deposit and or subscription. So there's been a sharp increase in entrepreneurial activity in this space in the last few years, especially with regard to incorporating technologies such as smartphone applications and RFID tags. I could spend a whole hour on this alone, but I'm happy to answer more questions about it during Q&A. The workplace cafeterias comprise only about 1% of food service establishments in New York City. New York City has about 25,000 food service establishments, and there's somewhere around 200 to 250 workplace cafeterias. So why did we choose that for the grant application, which was specifically focused on piloting an exchange type reusable program in a workplace cafeteria? The first part of that is that many workplace cafeterias exclusively use disposable products, which was surprising to me at first when I first learned about it. But now I realize there are so many trade-offs in these settings that make sense. Listed on the slide are some of the other reasons we think workplace cafeterias make a good project pilot site. In general, it's easier and less expensive to get people using, returning, and reusing containers in a place where they go every day and where they can be influenced by peers and authority figures. And when you compare that to tackling, say, a neighborhood of restaurants, where someone might visit a restaurant and then never come back or come back a year later. So it seems like much more of a laboratory setting for this type of program. So reusable to-go container programs are not new to this market. The first college program I'm aware of started back in 2008 or 2009. There were around 100 colleges at least piloting these types of programs by the time I started researching in 2011. Workplace cafeterias started to follow suit shortly thereafter and are picking up some momentum now. What is new in this environment is using technology like a smartphone application for container checkout and return procedures. The main purpose of the tech, in this case of the app, is to provide a simple way to create accountability. We know from experience that workplace cafeteria programs have mixed results without using an accountability systems. Some don't lose many containers, and some lose nearly all of their containers. And so there's a lot of variables there, including corporate culture, the amount of messaging, all sorts of things. But the uncertainty around the expected loss rate of inventory of reusable containers is really a hurdle for a lot of folks in corporate settings to adopt this kind of thing. Clearly, no one wants to buy a whole bunch of, say, expensive china just to say it's all going to disappear next week. So the technology is meant to provide a more certainty in the accountability realm and ensure a higher return rate of containers to make sure they are used over and over again to provide the financial and economic benefits. Another big part of this is that it's hard to find data from reusable programs in any context. So we're excited that through this project, we're going to be able to publish all of our findings and get this information out there to hopefully help others continue our work and adopt programs. Let's see. So our big first challenge was finding a partner site, and in hindsight, would say that we may have wanted to do this before applying for the grant. My experience selling reusable programs into this market is that there could be a 6 to 12 month sales cycle, and so I was a bit concerned. We were targeting getting a pilot site nailed down within 3 months, and it turns out I was right. Not to toot my own horn, but I was right for maybe some of the wrong reasons. So our approach was generally to find a workplace cafeteria partner in New York City with dishwashing, because we wouldn't have the budget or the staff capacity to find offsite dishwashing and transport things offsite, and also to do something where there would be a measurable, meaningful waste reduction. In other words, we would want to get a lot of reusables in the hands of a lot of people and be able to say we avoided a lot of disposable products from going to landfill. We thought we would have liked to have had in our ideal case 100 people using reusables each day, and guessed that maybe we could get to that number with an operation serving a minimum of 1,000 meals per day. Let's see. It turned out that we got a pretty good reaction when we reached out to folks. We were focusing on, not surprisingly, contacting our personal and professional network. That was the most effective way to get through to people by far, although we did get a few reactions or responses from a press release and our website. We reached 40 total sites in New York, which is I estimate around 1/6 of the total workplace and employee cafeterias in New York City, which is, I think, a pretty good accomplishment. And we got 5 on-site meetings, seven conference calls, but it did end up taking 6 months to secure a partner. Our initial interest was higher in getting the meetings than I expected, but we ran into, once you get into the logistics of any program, whether it's government, private, business or large corporation, there's always so many variables. So we ended up having a final signed proposal in the fall of 2019, I think maybe October. So 6 months to really secure a partner, and then months more to actually get through the paperwork and move forward. We launched for context, we ended up launching in December of 2019. So almost a year from when the grant award began to actually launching a program. When we went out to recruit pilot sites, we focused on these primary benefits. Cost savings, because workplace cafeteria operations are under pressure to deliver great dining experiences at the lowest possible cost. Waste reduction to attract sustainability-oriented stakeholders, especially since food service disposables can be one of the last hurdles to reach zero waste goals. At least I learned that anecdotally from a few sites. Data is also appealing to those responsible for sustainability reporting, since data gathering is a fun part of sustainability. Having data automatically sent to you about reusables being used, I'm sure is a pleasant thing to have, and that's some of the feedback we got. Let's see, engaging with employees about sustainability is also a big focus of sustainability staff, and reusable container programs like this they're highly visible and something that people can literally touch and use every day. HR professionals are also increasingly realizing that an organization's sustainability credibility and initiatives can impact employee retention, especially with younger talent. So I see that I'm going to skip some of this because it's not super important. But what we ended up learning is that obviously there are motivations vary across sites. Individual personality of the people we talk to, the corporate culture, their role within the organization. Publicity was a key one, but one thing we learned is that competition is also very motivating. So for instance, if you find a company with a competitor in town, they would want to be doing this before their competitor. So we may want to find a way to leverage that next time around. Let's see, what else? The other part was kind of timing and piloting. So a lot of it was that people didn't want to be the first. They wanted something that was proven, a plug and play option. And so they were kind of waiting to see if someone else would do it. And then they're like, come back to us after the pilot was done. So, and then timing, timing is everything in a lot of cases. We spoke to one interested party right before they demolished their Manhattan headquarters. So timing was not great there. Let's see. So what made A&E a good partner? Well, they were the first and only to say yes, so that was the best criteria. But more so, they were the right people. So the A&E has about 1,000 employees in their building, and so and they have a great VP of facilities and operations. Who had the authority to make changes, is well connected and respected within the organization. The cafeteria manager is the same thing. It's a third-party company that manages the cafeteria, but eager to solve problems, interested in sustainability. They had dishwashing capacity, albeit small, but it was enough for what we were going to end up being able to do there. And the timing worked out great because they were working on refreshing their cafe concept and looking for all sorts of different ways to increase cafe visitation. So really it hit on all the cylinders. The one thing it concerned us was the size of their operation. And just to go quickly, we were looking to replace their clamshell products in 2 sizes, and they only were going through about 60 of those per day on average. So mathematically speaking, since we don't know who visits the cafeteria and how frequently, we might have had to get all 1,000 people in the building to sign up for our program to replace 60 clamshells. So we were concerned that, getting 100 on board, how many would actually be using these per day, 1 or 2 people. So we ultimately decided to move forward because all the other factors were so great. They're such a good partner. So let me just move on there. Briefly, how it works. We partnered with GoBox, which is a company out of Portland, Oregon. They've been doing this since 2013, one of the few with an app up and running. So we didn't have to build an app for this scenario. Users have to download the GoBox app for free. They have to create a GoBox account in the app, and they do have to provide credit card information, which I could talk a lot more about that part in the end, but the app wasn't designed for a workplace cafeteria setting. It was designed for the food truck situation in Portland. And anyway, so we had to use the credit card feature, which didn't turn out to be that big of a deal. To check out a container, they would open the app when they went to the cafe and type in a 4-digit code and then show the staff that there was this good to go screen on the app. And then staff would know that they could serve the food into a reusable container instead of a disposable container. And we allowed people there to have up to 2 containers checked out at any given time. Users were not charged anything, and we still haven't charged anything to anyone. The main thing is that if they lost a bunch of containers, we could have the option to try to invoice them, but at first we would try to communicate with them to get the containers back. Returning a container when they're done with it. There were 2 drop-off locations in A&E. They would simply go back to the drop-off location with the used container, open the app, scan a QR code on the return bin, and then drop the container in. The containers were collected at the end of each day and washed by the kitchen staff and stocked for reuse. So results to date, just checking on my time here. Oh, I gotta go quick. We've had 337 total container checkouts, about 28 checkouts per week on average, or 4 per day, which, you know, not surprising based on what I said before. We're up at 56 subscriptions. 80% of those subscriptions came in the first couple of weeks. The top 10 users account for about 50% of the container checkouts, and the top 20 users account for the 75% of checkouts. So you see it's a small group of that 56 that are really doing the heavy work. You also see that weekly checkouts kind of leveled out towards as things progress. We wanted to see if things would level out without a lot of interventions, and clearly that's what happened. So I'll get to what we're going to do next after that. The daily sales I'll kind of skip, but basically daily checkouts kind of align with the busyness in the cafe. The last interesting thing here before I try to just get out and finish up on time is just to note where these subscriptions, when they happened. So at pre-launch, we built an internal website for A&E, emailed select groups of people like the green team to get them on board and try to get them talking about this, had them sign up and sent them some materials about how to use the system. And then on the December 9th soft launched, we emailed them again, and I sat in the cafeteria personally. The cafeteria had some signage and containers up on the shelf for people to look at. But the big thing is that we had that VP of operations and her colleague there in person and talking to people in line, encouraging them to sign up. So that we ran for just 2 weeks, and then they were off for winter break, and then they had their cafe refresh starting on January 6th, which is when we got our next big uptick in subscribers. Again, did some tabling and displays, but I really think it was those personal interactions. You see, we did some emailing after those times. We even did a lunch and learn where we had 23 people come and learn about waste in New York City, and we only got 1 subscription out of that. I think most of those people were probably already signed up for the pilot program to begin with. I think my big takeaway are the event-oriented things that to bring attention to the cafes were very important, and then having those personal interactions. You know, me sitting at a table was passive. I was waiting for people to come over, and I didn't really get that many, even though I had a computer monitor and a big stack of things. But the going to talk to people in line in a non-obtrusive way was really the biggest way to get people signed up and over the hurdle, you know, to learn about what this is. And also just a key takeaway is that this thing, I always kind of thought maybe these things would pick up steam on their own without a lot of, you know, people would see it happening and then they would be interested and learn and sign up, but that doesn't seem to be happening at this point. Next up, and this is the last slide, we're going to introduce new containers, soup and oatmeal, based on feedback that some people would do this, but mainly they eat the oatmeal in the morning and nothing else. So we're also going to do a sign up a friend promotion where people get a free lunch if they sign up a new person. And that's kind of banking on the personal interaction as well as the financial incentive. And so we hope to learn a lot of interesting things from that. Wrapping up, we're going to be doing some surveys and interviews, doing our final report, a case study and toolkit, and all of that we're excited to release to the public. But mainly we're focusing on after the pause from our coronavirus epidemic, we're hoping to get back and up and running and do some of these interventions to learn a bit more. So timing is uncertain, but we're excited to get all this stuff out there. And that, oops, sorry, I missed that slide. I was looking at another monitor, but so that's just what we're doing next. And then that's everything I have. Please definitely feel free to shoot me an email for additional details and things we don't cover in Q&A.
Thank you, Richard. I really appreciate your presentation. You touched on a lot of very important aspects of this work, ranging from the importance of having continuous engagement with your stakeholders, in this case, the users of the cafeteria, and them having to be continuously encouraged to set that up. So people should all realize that you have to continuously invest in that. And you also
Absolutely.
touched on a number of examples of how you're measuring your success through these subscriptions and other activities and continuously tracking that information. So the importance of having that infrastructure in place, as well as in choosing a host site, having the right people with leadership, a culture of concern about sustainability, as well as the capacity for your pilot around the dishwashing capacity. But also, I thought interesting the aspect of the timing and the importance of either the luck or strategically planning an intervention when someone is looking for that new concept is critical. So the timing of when a new idea is presented to an organization is important. So thank you. We'd like to now move on to the next presenter. Our third presenter is Sean Hoyt from Consolidated Edison. Sean is the program manager for the small and medium business program at Consolidated Edison. It has over a decade of experience in energy and utilities industry. As a program manager, Sean leads a team of multidisciplinary professionals that accelerate the adoption of new and innovative energy efficient technologies for small to medium-sized customers across all 5 boroughs of New York City and including Westchester County. Early in his career at Con Edison, Sean gained a lot of experience in his activities related to building and upgrading substations, power generating plants that obviously impact New York City's complex electric, gas, and steam distribution systems. His deep industry knowledge and his technical experience allows him to be at the forefront of the ever-changing electric grid and allows Con Edison to have the capability to improve efficiency, generate more revenue, and maximize the societal benefits. I'll now hand over the presentation to Sean. And as a reminder, please submit all your questions through the question box and we'll try to address them during the question and answer session. So Sean, I'd be glad if you took over and started your presentation.
All right, thank you, Walter, and also thank you, Susan and Kevin, and our partners at the EPA for hosting this webinar, inviting me as a presenter. I'd also like to thank all of our guests tuning in today. These are extremely unprecedented times, and my hope is that your family, friends, and loved ones are doing well, and that I could provide you with information that you could use as a resource in the future. As Walter mentioned, my name is Sean Hoyt, and I'm a program manager in Con Edison's Energy Efficiency and Demand Management Department, with a primary focus on the small to mid-sized business market segment. During this presentation, I'll give you a quick overview of Con Edison and the services we provide, travel back in time and discuss the company's sustainability journey, then touch on our focus toward a clean energy future, which includes the work that I do with small and mid-sized businesses. So Con Edison is comprised of subsidiaries. Consolidated Edison Company of New York is one of the nation's largest investor-owned energy delivery companies, and we offer several energy-related products and services through our subsidiaries. The company I work for is Secconi, which is Con Edison, is highlighted in blue. We're a regulated utility providing 3 commodities: electric, steam, and gas service to the 5 boroughs of New York City and Westchester County. Our other regulated arm is Orange and Rockland, which is illustrated in orange, which serves a portion of southeastern New York and northern New Jersey. And then we have our clean energy businesses, which is an unregulated arm of the business. They focus on developing, owning, and the operation of renewable energy infrastructure and providing energy-related products and services to wholesale and retail customers, that's upstream. And then lastly, we have our Con Edison Transmission, which invests in electric and natural gas transmission projects. The company itself in New York City, we serve about 10 million people, and that's generally speaking is Manhattan, the Bronx, Westchester, Queens, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. So sustainability journey. For most people, sustainability isn't the first thing that comes to mind when you think about an energy providing utility. Up until the past few years, when I used to research, if you search the internet for utilities, you'd find a lot of stacked pipes, transmission lines, and images that signaled some form of pollution. But Con Edison has been committed to helping our communities, customers, and the environment thrive for quite some time, with 3 priorities in mind: safety in the environment, operational excellence, and the customer experience. And part of that is when we entered into the EPA's Gas Star program. We've been partnering with the EPA for some time, and this is just something that illustrates what we've done and how we're taking the lead in trying to be a transformational company as it pertains to the environment. And we continue that partnership by participating in the WasteWise program in 1996. We went on to win the WasteWise Champion Award in 2001 and in 2002 for recycling and other environmentally conscious actions. Additionally, in 2002, we were named Energy Company of the Year at the Global Energy Awards. The EPA also awarded us with the Clean Air Excellence Award for the Hunts Point Market Truck Electrification Project and the Environmental Quality Award for the Mercury Gauge Exchange Program. 2002 was quite a busy year for us. Moving on to 2006, we have about 15,000 employees with different cultures, backgrounds, and experiences that reflect the diversity of the neighborhoods we serve. I'll touch on the importance of having a diverse workforce and what it means for our business later in the presentation, but this signifies a great accomplishment, as we were only behind Verizon, and Coca-Cola followed us in 3rd place in 2006 as one of the most diverse companies in America. So prior to 2008, all of our achievements, like the ones I just mentioned, were published in the company's EH&S annual reports. In 2008, we were able to create the sustainability strategy and publish our first sustainability report. And establishing this governance helps the company continue to build sustainable organization in the future. And also in 2008, we installed our first green roof at the Learning Center, which is where I did a lot of my training when I started the company at Con Edison back in 2007. Really taught me the fundamentals of what I'm doing now, what I did in the field, and it really shaped my career. So having a green roof on that facility is, for me, it's very cool. We partnered with Columbia University Center for Climate Systems Research on that project. In 2009, this is another big year for us. We began participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative to cap and reduce our CO2 emissions. We were also named to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index for the first time, and what's called the Energy Efficiency Portfolio Standard, or EPS, was initiated in 2009. So this was a game changer for the company and for the state of New York, as the joint utilities took ownership of energy efficiency programs. And we'll get into a little bit more of that and the type of programs that we run later in the presentation as well. Moving on to 2011, we achieved our 2020 GHG emission goal, which is amazing. Not much more to say about that, but it just is a testament to the work that we're doing to reduce our carbon emissions. And then from 2016 till now, earlier in the slide, I mentioned that the images that popped up when I was searching the internet for utilities, you see a lot of stacked pipes and transmission lines and pollution. And currently, while you still see the stacked pipes and transmission lines, you also see wind turbines and solar panels alongside them. Con Edison is focused on clean energy for the foreseeable future. And I'll touch on some of the work we're doing to make it happen in the next few slides as well. So Customer Energy Solutions. This is the organizational structure that I work under. It's headed by my senior vice president and then distributed among several departments, including our demonstration projects group, utility of the future, distribution planning, and EEDM, or energy efficiency and demand management, just to name a few. So what is energy efficiency and demand management? So the example on the top, energy efficiency, is load reduction over time. If you look at the gray line, that is a traditional load curve. Once you apply or install energy efficiency equipment, it should reduce that load over the duration of the curve. Whereas in demand management, you have the similar load curve, and you're going to reduce the demand for a duration of that time frame. An example of this would be if you had a demand response program and you enrolled your large commercial an industrial building owner, and you have 4 elevator banks. It's a hot summer day, and you shut down 2 of those elevator banks so that the demand would lessen during that time. We also do that with peak shaving with battery storage and smart thermostats and a number of different technologies to help us manage the demand on the grid. This is the organizational structure of the department. So we have EEDM, the energy efficiency side of the house, again, is focused on the kilowatt hour or reduction over time. And then the demand management is focused on kW or power, the reduction in a shorter period of time. And in energy efficiency, we have 4 core programs, 4 market segments. We have commercial and industrial. We have the small to medium business space, which is the project, the program that I manage. We have our residential customers, which are 1 to 4 family units. And then we have our multifamily, which are 5 units and above. Those are also the large commercial customers, but for residential customers. Then we have demand response, non-wire solutions, and non-pipeline solutions. So when you think of non-wire solutions, we're thinking of offsetting or deferring a traditional build, such as the substations that I was a part of when I started my career, by means of customer-side solutions. So reducing that load on the customer side, having them incorporate energy efficiency and distributed energy resources, such as battery storage, on the facility to help us keep our system reliable and safe, and not have to build to compensate for inefficiencies that may be on the grid. We touched on demand response briefly, and non-pipe solutions is the gas side of reducing gas consumption, whereas non-wire solutions is electric energy. We're looking at ground source air heat pumps to kind of mitigate that risk, electrification, of everything that we can. We're looking at technological providers to help us improve the customer experience and achieve our environmental state goals, which is listed below. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And the priority is to help maintain operational reliability and innovation through program design and implementation. So how do our EE programs work? In portfolio planning, it includes all market segments. So the residential, the multifamily, the small to medium business, and the large commercial. And we kind of tailor the approach differently depending on the amount of customers that are in the market segment, the needs at a particular region of our system, and how we could best maximize our shareholder incentives. Design programs take and engage customers and contractors and retailers. A big part of this is diversity, supplier diversity, and having subject matter experts come in with valuable lessons learned and experience that we could leverage to really design our programs in the most efficient manner for our customer base. And then we offer financial incentives. The primary technologies that we focus on the energy efficiency side are lighting, refrigeration, HVAC, controls, and gas measures. And on the demand management side is more of the integrated distributed generation, distributed energy resources such as, again, mentioning battery storage. We also have electric vehicles on that side of the house and anything that has a demand component. After we design the program and offer financial incentives, we evaluate the program performance. We have program goals and targets that the department sets out in alignment with the Public Service Commission and what they set forth for us. And we see how the programs operate, and if we're able to achieve them, or if we overachieve, or if we underachieve, then we'll realign our portfolio. We'll design the program and tailor it better, and then we'll run this process again. So some of the challenges and opportunities for the market that I serve for small to medium businesses, now more than ever, the importance of helping these businesses thrive is more evident. In my opinion, the small to medium business space is the backbone of the New York City economy, and I have 350,000 eligible customers to kind of serve. This chart that you're looking at came out of our market research focus groups, where we invited small to medium business owners from each of the market segments listed above. That's the main market segments in restaurants, healthcare, food stores, and grocery stores, retail stores, office spaces, warehouses, distribution centers, and data centers. And what we learned is that, as Dana mentioned throughout her presentation, it's not one size fits all. Each of these business types have different needs. They have different levels of awareness. We need to tailor different messaging to them to be able to reach them, for them to even consider participating in a program. And one of the main questions that comes up, at least for me and my staff, is why would the utility that we pay an energy bill to come in, help us out, help give us incentives to pay for the technology and reduce our bills that we're going to pay to you? They think that it'll come back and bite them in the end. This is New York City after all. There's a lot of skepticism in New York City for people and residents that live here or people that travel here. So that's one of the biggest hurdles and challenges, is getting that message out in a way that customers understand that we're here to help each other, that this is a community effort. And while we're trying to lead this charge, they're a major component of it, and we need all of their participation in order to be successful. So again, this is just some of the feedback on how I can tailor the program in a better way. As previously you saw on the slide, we have to plan, we have to design, and we have to create financial incentives. So understanding from the customers, from the business owners themselves, is a big part of how we make programs successful. And if you want more information on what we're doing for the small business space, you can visit the website. It's connet.com/small business. You'll see I segmented the market very similarly to how this chart looks, in the 6 different business segments and then tailor the messaging for those customers specifically. Some of the value propositions that we try to add for those customers, we really try to simplify all of the technicalities of what we're doing, understanding that small business customers or even residential customers don't necessarily have the time and the resources to dig into what HVAC systems they need or different types of technology. So we really tailor it in a way to help them understand the monetary value by reduced maintenance if they own a facility, increased sales if you own a retail shop where you need better ambiance or the environment of the facility to be adequate. The cool factor, I mean, a lot of people are really driving this charge for sustainability and protecting the environment. Is very, very much having to do with the millennial age right now. I'm borderline millennial. I don't know. Some days I'm a millennial, and then some days I see things on social media and I will not admit to it. But it's very encouraging seeing all the rallies and this drive for us to protect the planet in which we live on. I mean, it's more important now than ever. And when we're not out there just doing it organically, we have some regulatory reform. So this is a summary of the state and the city policies that will impact the work that we do at the company level and overall. We are driven to comply with the energy savings goals set by the public utility regulator, that's the Public Service Commission, and these goals continue to grow year over year. The state has very aggressive emission reduction goals, which means more and more energy efficiency for the foreseeable future. And similarly, New York City has come down with very stringent limits on emissions that will be enforced on buildings in the near future. I should also note that last year, the state passed the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, or the CLCPA, that mandates 70% electricity come from renewables by 2030. That's in a decade. And 100% of clean electricity by 2040. So we have our work cut out for us. And if you're wondering how we're going to get there, it's by all of our stakeholders, by partnering with diverse companies to meet our energy-related goals, which is essential for success as a community. And we've been partnering with the Environmental Protection Agency for decades. And we've learned and we've participated in the meaningful programs, and we've been able to reduce our carbon footprint significantly. Partnerships are key as we look to drive change as responsible environmental stewards. The program that I manage, the Small to Medium Business Program, is not only about reducing energy consumption off the grid, we're also creating opportunities for minority, women-owned business entrepreneurs. We're creating opportunities for the youth that want to learn about how to be successful in this industry. I'm creating internships and training opportunities for them, and really giving the economy a boost where it's really needed. These small to medium businesses are at the forefront of everything. And unfortunately, due to the times that we're in right now, a lot of them are suffering, and they're going to need all of our support to make it out of this. So education, what we post on the media, community groups, our market partners, all of the contractors that work in the program, we have about 100 as it stands. And as we expand our offerings from lighting, it used to be lighting only about 10 years ago. Majority of the program was still lighting in 2016, and now we have a diverse portfolio. And as the technological advancements continue to thrive, we will continue to provide more offerings to our customers. Now, I mentioned that I'm in the umbrella for Customer Energy Solutions, and there are some other things that we do in that space. Primarily, this is what the Distribution System Implementation Plan looks like, or our DSIP. And part of that is enhancing safety for the public and our workers, empowering customers to make more choices or better informed choices or have more choices available. And being resilient to extreme weather and climate change. I have a bunch of resources at the end of the slide deck for your reference if you wanted to dig further in to what those resources are and what the climate change studies look like. And what this kind of looks like overall from a sustainability perspective, wrong direction. From a sustainability perspective and enhancing DRs is a smart city, right? We're enhancing visibility into the grid through grid modernization, integrated and distributed energy resources for a cleaner energy future. and giving customers the opportunities to install battery storage, electric vehicle integration, and kind of all these technologies that talk to each other. You have building management systems, you have cogen systems on site, and this is kind of where we're headed as we look to combat climate change and provide a clean energy future. And one of the main overarching themes for me is that in order for our communities, our customers, and the planet to survive, we must be certain that visions of the future don't ignore realities of the present. I gave a talk last year in Oakland at Verge, and I was tasked with giving a short quote, and this quote kind of stuck with me because it's easy to set long-term goals, but if you're not seeing the immediate impacts of the communities in which that we serve as well in a parallel, then they may get lost in the shuffle. And the work that we're doing is really focused on making sure that everybody's inclusive, that nobody gets lost in the shuffle, that our low to moderate income customers are taken care of, that our large commercial customers are taken care of, that the small to medium businesses are taken care of, and so on and so forth across the board. And some of the resources that I wanted to share with you, these are links. So the energy efficiency and demand management page, again, for renters, multifamily, and for business customers, there's a program for everybody. If you own a electric vehicle or not, whether you own your apartment or if you live in a multifamily building, we have incentives to help you be more energy efficient and really be part of this change. Tech and innovation is really cool. It really shows our advanced meter infrastructure deployment and what that means for the company, and then a natural gas efficiency and alternatives, which is part of the NPS or the non-pipeline solutions information you could find there. Our climate change vulnerability study, this highlights the importance of preparing our infrastructure to withstand extreme events such as Hurricane Sandy. So it's really focused on resiliency. For this one, we partnered with ICF and Columbia University and the Earth Institute. It's a very good place. I actually studied there, which kind of led me to transition into this role. And then we have our long-range plans for electric, for gas, and for steam. And there's loads of information there if you wanted it as a reference. And Walter, that's all I have for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. That was a great presentation, and I was very impressed and struck by how you were inspired by that green roof very early in your career and the importance of personal inspirations to drive what is now a longstanding commitment to help your organization adapt to changing circumstances. So a lot of these things can be very personal. I also was interested in particularly the way Con Ed has to address and leverage both a diverse range of stakeholders and their perspectives, as well as information and capabilities, as well as the challenge of probably keeping up to date on a lot of the emerging technologies that are continuously out there, and being able to assess the relative importance of those to your business in the long term as an important aspect. In addition, I think one of the things that struck me was how in 2008, your work, you started with your first strategic integrated plan, as I understood it. And by 2020, you can see that your plans are more intensive. You're wrestling with a lot of issues, which just illustrates the continuing acceleration of complexity in both the social environment of Con Edison as well as the technological environment. So decision making is now taking place more in the context of a complex social system with a expectation that uncertainty is only going to be there when we wake up the next day. So I appreciate you sharing with us your insights. I really like that chart with the small business and how you tailor your programs to different audiences. It's very interesting. So thank you again, Sean. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome, Walter.
I'd like to now go to the next presenter that I'm very happy to have Ed Caraca present. Ed has been working with EPA Region 2 on and off with Kai Asrau and Brenda Hopper for many years. I understand Brenda is retiring and we only wish her the best. It's been a pleasure to see this project evolve over time. So with that, Ed Caraca is the principal and founder of Onsite Advisors. He's a which is a management consulting firm that specializes in strategic planning and organizational effectiveness, two themes that you've heard a lot about today. He currently serves as the senior consultant to the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers, where he manages a statewide specialty program to help small businesses adopt or expand environmental practices. His involvement goes back a while to addressing sustainability in terms of his relationship with EPA. Back in 2008, he managed a multi-year EPA grant for NJSBDC that focused on educating garment care professionals about the hazards associated with traditional solvent-based dry cleaning methods and the benefits of wet cleaning as a safer alternative. Since then, he's had a lot of different experiences working with the New Jersey DEP, and I've always had a sense that the collaborative relationship there has been very complementary, based on a lot of goodwill and a real sense of enthusiasm that has come out of the state of New Jersey Environmental Protection Agency. And I thank Kai Asrau for his leadership there. With all this creative thinking that went on, they'll talk a little bit about their sustainable business registry and the sustainable consulting add-ons that they've brought to the business centers. And that in itself has been an interesting challenge and opportunity that I think is bearing a lot of fruit after much concerted effort. Ed is a professor of management at the College of New Jersey School of Business. I don't know how you find that time, Ed, but thank you for contributing to the students in the future. And with that, I'll hand the presentation over to you, Ed, and to wrap up our fourth presentation of great importance. Thank you, Ed.
Well, thank you, Walter, and thank you, Susan and Kevin, and all of those who are online today. I appreciate and I'm honored to be here to represent the New Jersey Small Business Development Centers, which I will briefly summarize for you in a minute or so. But I'm also privileged to be the program manager, as Walter already indicated, for their Sustainable Business Program, a program that would not have been accomplished or even launched if it had not been for the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, which is a key partner in all of this, and especially for its Sustainability Bureau Chief, Kai Asrau, who is also on the line today and is ready to take questions with us later on. So I want to get into a little bit of background, and let's see. No, I don't want to do that, do I? There we go. How this program began was basically as a result of an initiative that back in 2011, the NJDEP's Bureau of Sustainability established. And its purpose was to, as you see here, develop and implement programs to educate businesses about sustainable practices, provide tools and processes to hopefully certify their sustainable programs, and incent and recognize any businesses that actually could prove that they were adopting sustainable practices. At the time, about 60 public-private profit and nonprofit entities made up what we call the Sustainable Business Initiative, or what they called the Sustainable Business Initiative. These objectives, as valuable as they were, as wonderful as they were, really couldn't be carried out by a regulatory entity. At the time, it was thought, and still is, that an agency like the DEP might have an enforceable component to it, and it's something that businesses might shy away from. So it was deemed that they'd want to look for a non-regulatory company or consultant or agency or whatever that was part of the SBI to carry out and support the objectives that I just went over. So that's where the NJSBDC came in. As Walter had mentioned earlier, NJSBDC was already experienced in grants that included the NJDEP. We had worked on a wet cleaning grant, and prior to that, we had helped them implement a grant that focused on auto body shops. So in addition to being a member of the NJDEP's SBI, we also had a very large footprint in the state of New Jersey, and we also, by nature of the work that the NJSBDC does, was able to reach out to businesses of almost all sizes, but specifically small to mid-sized businesses throughout the state. As you can see here, besides being a member of the Association of Small Business Development Centers, and in fact, there's one SBDC in each and every state. We're headquartered at the Rutgers Business School. They have 12 regional centers, as the map points out here. And their purpose has been, for the last 40 years now, to provide all sorts of technical assistance and consulting and training on all aspects of business operations to mostly small to medium-sized businesses. And these are not just your startups. These, of course, are your established businesses. And that's what we were after mostly when it came to our objectives. We also had, and speaking of our objectives, points of interest that align. When we say NJSBDC/SBI compatible objectives, we really mean that it was one of the NJSBDC's intentions to enhance economic success through environmental practices and thereby improve the quality of life. So on point one there, we were identical. So we were able to communicate the same message, and we're also able to reach, by nature and by purpose of what we do with the NJSBDC, a wide variety of businesses throughout the states. Thousands upon thousands of businesses in the state of New Jersey are in the NJSBDC's database. So how do we accomplish those objectives of educating and encouraging businesses to take up or expand their sustainable practices? The opinion was that we try to institutionalize sustainability as a new practice in the NJSBDC's repertoire of services. And to do that, in addition to the services they already provide, we had no one on board who was an expert in any sort of matter that even came close to sustainability or environmental programs. So we would have to hire expert consultants to do that weren't on board right now. But the idea was to have them contact business owners and counsel them either on site, online, or on phone. And today that would be going on, as you know, online or on the phone. But a lot of that, in fact, what we'll talk about shortly, happened on site and very much in depth also. And the other idea we had was to develop some sort of certification program so that businesses could be recognized for their efforts. The state of Maryland, for example, I guess kind of served as the model. Kai Oswald was the one who tipped us off to the state of Maryland's state registry. It's a very simple approach. We thought it was a great first step. And it was a way that the NJSBDC, without having a lot of hands-on experience with sustainability, could administer a registry. There's this, again, it's a database. But I'll talk more about this also because that is the centerpiece of our program right now. So neither the NJDEP nor the NJSBDC was in a financial position to develop a website or a sort of a registry or a database to handle this, or even hire expert consultants. Their budget was pretty much already set. So serendipitously, it was, and almost, well, coincidentally, it was great that an RFP had come out that in early 2013 that was looking for ways to prevent pollution among businesses. And we just jumped on that and put together a very comprehensive application, and it was awarded later that year a grant to encourage and advance pollution practices among small to mid-sized businesses. As you can see from the description here, it was designed to promote pollution prevention and improve environmental performance and enhance business efficiency, which correlated with the expected P2 outcomes, the objectives, the P2 goals, in fact, the national focus areas that the EPA Region 2 was looking to achieve. They are reducing, of course, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as toxic and hazardous waste, conserve water and natural resources, promote business efficiencies, and integrate P2 practices. Well, again, the NJSBDC was great at promoting business efficiencies, but the other things we really needed expert advice on, and we were able to get that, again, by way of hiring consultants and instituting the registry. As far as the consultants in the registry go and the technical assistance that we're to provide, we have 15 specific goals that we met or exceeded as part of our grant, which all addressed the objectives that the EPA had wanted us to achieve and that we said we were going to achieve. But the most direct and notable of those 15 goals that had to do with the objectives I just mentioned were to conduct 12 to 15 P2 consultations. That is, actually visit 12 to 15 businesses in the state of New Jersey within 2 years to conduct consultations, assessments, evaluation, and leave them with a comprehensive plan of action. We were also dedicated, committed to designing a registry, which we call the Sustainable Business Registry now. And with that, of course, a website and web page is dedicated to environmental practices. With the registry comes a database, which we discovered in its evolution required more functionality than we had actually planned at the onset of the grant. But we were able to have the money to do that. And that was probably our biggest expense, and that was the design and the maintenance of the registry. We wanted to have at least 100 businesses in the 2 years of the grant that had become and passed the requirements for being registry members. And by being registry members, we would collect enough data, hopefully, to prove that to the EPA, that we were able to measure their environmental performance, as well as any cost savings associated with any reductions or conservation methods that they achieved. So in New Jersey, we are helping businesses. Now we're helping businesses of all sizes, in fact, through the registry to become sustainable. So let's learn more about our two-pronged program. And if you become a member of the registry specifically, you get to showcase that by way of this window cling or door cling, or wherever you want to display the fact that you are an NJSBDC registered sustainable business. There are two prongs to our program, as I probably mentioned earlier. Sustainability consulting or technical assistance are the same things to us. But the beauty here is that, as with all NJSBD services, it's no cost consulting and no cost to you to call, to have us visit you, or to have a relationship with you online. Our consulting is, in terms of sustainability, is conducted by experts who have experience in all facets of those programs. Each company, well, and then of course is the Sustainable Business Registry, or the SBR. This is a website where businesses apply online and become recognized by being members of the SBR for their sustainability efforts, along with other businesses. And I'll get to show you some of those a little later. So in terms of the consulting or technical assistance, however you'd like to refer to it, our consultants visited establishments, 16 in fact, so we did exceed that goal. And each company that they visited received a comprehensive report on conservation and P2 practices that were specific to their business. And along with that, we were able to capture, especially at the end of our grant years, for our EPA final report, the measurable results and the cost savings associated with those pollution prevention opportunities. So in the table here, you see as of September 2019, and now I'm saying September 2019, and some of you are saying, well, you had a 2-year grant, what goes on? Well, the 2 years wasn't really enough. And once we got some momentum behind us during those 2 years, we realized that we really need to conduct this program for much longer if we were going to establish itself something that has permanence, which it does today. So we had a number of no-cost extensions that were granted to us through the EPA, for which we were very grateful for. But because they were no cost, we still had money associated with the first 2 years that were established for us, and we were still able to produce these kinds of results from these 16 businesses. So this is one outcome that I hope the EPA is happy about. The other that we are really especially thrilled about is the centerpiece of the program, which we refer to as the SBR, the New Jersey Sustainable Business Registry. It was developed by us, or it's administered by us, but it couldn't occur without technical assistance from the NJDEP. We also needed the money, as I mentioned earlier, to develop this website and the database and all the functionality that went into it, which, when all said and done, cost us about a minimum of $30,000 to $35,000. So we hope that whoever's on the line and might be interested in doing something like this in your state, just get in touch with us, and we'd be able to and very happy to guide you through what you need to do, as well as share any resources that we have with you. So again, it's the centerpiece of our program, and not only that, we found out that it's really a form of competitive advantage for businesses. We find that businesses who are members are soon no longer the sole representative of their industry, that we get others who are in the industry emulating them and wanting to do the same thing. So it's great. We are seeing businesses that have adopted sustainable business practices now making them public. So the SBR is, as I mentioned earlier, modeled after State of Maryland's program, but ours is, I have to say, more rigorous. Ours, to become a member, it's just not a matter of listing some information. It's more than a checklist approach, which is typical of Maryland's. But this was our original thought, which I'm sharing with you. Since then, we've, of course, expanded our application. The application really requires anyone to come up with data, to provide us with information. It's not just a check off or yes or no. It's really having to answer specific questions about measurable actions and provide information that would lead us to verify that application. We don't have a third party doing that, but the application review process is scrutinized, and it's approved by our colleagues under Kai's direction over at the DEP. So it's not that easy, but it's not that difficult either. And I'll show you later how many members we have at this point. So we're also able to come out and assist you if that's to your liking. We can assist you again by phone through the application process. We've done this many times. Many times we'll get an email, someone's in the middle of their application and don't quite understand something or don't know if they would be correct in entering some information, and we're happy to assist them to get them through that application process. The process requires that they share information about 5 sustainable actions or practices that they've adopted. And even though businesses have probably adopted more than those, that's all they're required to do to become a member. But they also need to identify a cost savings associated with that practice, as well as a measurable environmental benefit from that practice, a measurable result. Now, this isn't a forever membership, as this slide points out. We ask that members renew every 2 years, that they show us in that review, in that renewal process, that they've upped their sustainability game, that they've produced one more measurable result and one more cost savings. So we're looking for them to really put more skin in the game when it comes to sustainability. And you know what? You would think some members resist, but actually our fallout rate is minimal, I would say, which is great. Most organizations do have no problem renewing. Some of the eligible practices that they can select from, and this is on the website, this is on our brochures and our posters, there are 12 of these. And once you get to understand that sustainability just isn't about reducing waste, it can really matter when it comes to management and leadership or community or their building itself, or transportation. Then you have a lot of light bulbs going off that these business owners were never really attuned to before. So we try to make it easy by clicking on any of these, and when you click on any of these, for example, under waste reduction practices, you're going to get a menu of, you're going to get a list of other tips and resources that can help you complete that information or think about what you have done or can do in terms of sustainable practices. Here's an example of a practice that, in fact, Princetel, one of our leading premier companies here in New Jersey, a manufacturing company, has produced for their application. Of their 5 sustainable practices, one of them was the installation of a 200 kilowatt solar energy system. The measurable benefit that resulted there was a savings of 150,000 kilowatt hours, which associated with a cost savings of $24,000 annually. So the kilowatt hours and the money saved are not, calculations that Princetel has to do. In fact, they're calculations that happen in the website, behind the scenes, in the functionality of the SBR program. So this is a little bit about why we paid a little extra and not just, a basic amount of money to have a website done. A lot of calculations are done automatically, and they're done as the company applies. So more resources, in fact, are represented here on the next slide. This is one of our pages from the registry. It's the business resources page. And by clicking on any one of these, you'll be taken to, in fact, case studies that have been done in companies that have done exemplary things with water or green building or the like. And I'm not sure about my time here, but if I just clicked on here, I could take you to a live view, in fact, of the home page of the registry. Here we have social media toolkit that you can use to publicize your accomplishments and keep them in the forefront of your consumers, your customers. Community story maps, I have a slide on that a little bit later. Our connections with NJBIA, which is the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And, you know, these can change all the time to keep it current. But, you know, if you looked here, here's our application tab. The number of registered businesses would appear here. A business map, which shows balloons as to where our members are located in the state, are here. Communities pages, resources, opportunities to submit testimonials, awards, and anything you can think of that has to do with this program and making it more aware among the business community, publicizing it as much as we can. So I'll just take us back now to our slides. Oh, what happened here?
Ed, it looks like, yeah, there you go.
Well, this is my PowerPoint, so that's okay. All right, you guys are patient. This is good. All right. So as of the moment, we have, in terms of our registered members, we have 198 businesses. And when I say the moment, recently, when these slides were put together a week or so ago, we had 198 members. And I'm happy to say that in the first 2 years, we did exceed our goal of 100. 198, you think is, I don't know, I guess that'd be conservative. And it probably is, but the more salient matters here are that 35 different business sectors are represented, and we have members representing 20 out of 21 New Jersey counties. That is, I think, pretty significant in terms of how this registry has affected the small to mid-sized business community. In addition, I went to the slide I showed you earlier about the 16 businesses that have produced significant measurable results. These results are as of our EPA final report, which was submitted on September 30th, 19, or for the period ending September 30th, 19. Our grant final report to the EPA, and this was accurate as of the moment, as of that day, was these business results, or these measurable results, and they reflect each member's measurable results as initially reported. So this is a table taken from a 5-year database, and again, using calculations that were made using EPA's P2 greenhouse gas calculator. Now, if you have questions about this, I am not the scientist or the engineer. That would be Kai, and we're going to be here, as Walter mentioned earlier, for questions and answers. Now, we also keep a running tab of results, and I'm even happier to say that most of our results, although they change daily, have increased significantly by the nature of the members that have come on since September 30th. For example, 494,000 gallons of fuel saved is the new number now, whereas back in September it was 482,000 gallons. So most of these indicators go up, but there are some that go down. In fact, I think 21.4 million pounds of waste is down from 22 something on the previous slide. And the reason for that is because 1 or 2 companies may have not renewed and taken their pounds of waste with them. So they're no longer kept on the registry. Membership benefits, in addition to being on a statewide website and recognized as a registered member, is you get free publicity in a way because of that. You are eligible for the NJSBDC's annual Success Awards. Here we have a representative from a Northern New Jersey manufacturing company that was just thrilled that they were nominated and went through a selection process and awarded a distinction of being a Sustainable Business Award winner for that year. There's access to technical assistance anytime, but the other thing that they really like is the Sustainable Business Seal and the logos that they're given to use on their stationery or programs or brochures or office material. Aside from the membership benefits that you have listed here, the SBDC's benefits are significant. This is a gateway to new businesses that may not have even known about the SBDC or have sought traditional SBDC offerings like help in marketing or help in finance or help in accounting. Now we can give them help that rounds out the repertoire of NJSBDC services. So it is a natural addition to its program of services. It's a tool to get businesses into the green economy. It coincides with our mission, but we also want other states to know about this program. So we're committed to helping other state SBDCs, if they're so inclined, to adopt and implement and emulate a program like this. And we, in fact, would be happy to share whatever tips and resources we can to get them started. I think the only thing we can't share an SBDC in another state with is probably the website, but we can certainly turn them on to whoever helped us, and perhaps there'd be a deal in mind to do the same thing in another state, which I would be happy to lobby in that effort. When we say SBR's communities pages reinforces business community connections, we're really talking about the business communities pages we have on our SBR website. And here's a snapshot of them. And it stems from our partnership with Sustainable Jersey. Sustainable Jersey is a certification program here in this state for municipalities. They, based on points awarded for sustainable programs that municipalities conduct, are eligible to award bronze, silver, and gold designations to any one of hundreds of municipalities in New Jersey that would seek membership or distinction in their levels of membership. So currently we have Sustainable Jersey / SBR communities pages for the towns of Princeton, Montclair, Red Bank, and Verona, and there are about 6 other towns who are pursuing Sustainable Jersey recognition in conjunction with having businesses as members of SBR. I think that if you have 3 businesses in your community that are members of SBR, it counts 20 points towards your Sustainable Jersey recognition or application. So that kind of, strengthens our presence in the communities. We do a lot of outreach in addition to what I just showed you on the website and what I went over in terms of consulting. But outreach is the key, and the more we can get in front of communities and businesses, the more members we seem to get. So should you like to contact us, and we hope you do, I'm Ed at onsiteadvisors.com. Kai is at the DEP, and Gina is an associate of ours at the DEP who, again, is valuable to this whole process, especially the application and its oversight. Our website is listed there for you. And again, it's been a pleasure to talk about this. We love talking about it. And I look forward to any questions. Kai and I look forward to any questions that you might have. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ed. It was a pleasure listening to how the whole project has evolved over many years of hard work, as well as it was also very interesting how you're embedding your project into the larger community, as well as other state-led programs. And that embeddedness, I think, will help it to be very socially relevant and sustaining. It's also noteworthy that the development centers have now looked at this as a strategic priority for them, providing a niche service in addition to the other outreach that they do around traditional business practices. And you've been very helpful in sharing this information throughout other organizations. I know you did a presentation in Puerto Rico sharing your knowledge with the development center down there, so I appreciate that. So I think we've seen some very good examples of the importance of strategy and transformational leadership in 4 different settings, with very important insights coming out of each one of them, as well as a lot of common ground. Kevin, do you want to field any of the questions or share that with us and lead some of the question and answers?
Sure, not a problem. Got about 5 minutes, so we can do a quick lightning round of questions. All right, and thanks everybody who's been sending in questions. Really appreciate it. Being in the Sustainable Materials Management section, getting to work with Walter on the P2 webinar, it's been great because P2 and source reduction is really the utmost goal of sustainable materials management. So for the lightning round, our first question is for Rich. Rich, did you have any incentive for A&E to participate in your pilot? And what would be your top recommendation to attract companies to participate in the pilot?
Thank you for that question. Really, the incentives for A&E to participate were that the grant was covering all of the external consulting fees. So it was all of our time and labor to design the program for them and be on site and help implement it. That would minimize their internal staff costs. We were buying the reusable containers for them with the EPA grant, and the GoBox app was being made available to free for them by the EPA app. And then, yeah, the publicity attached to the program. Those were the main incentives. Employees were allowed to sign up for free as well. So that was kind of the incentive for them there. The recommendations for attracting people, I'm still trying to put all that together in cohesive thought. But I think the challenges, like I outlined, are the timing to get companies on board with this. It has to be the right timing for them in their sustainability journey and their culture, and also operationally. But I think it's removing the uncertainty about how many containers they're going to lose, what money they're going to save, what kind of labor is going to be involved. I think the more we can remove the uncertainty and iron and present a clear, simple value proposition, that will help us get more like workplaces on board with this.
Great. Our next question is going to be for Sean. And Sean, it looks like you already answered a little bit of it through the chat box. If you don't mind readdressing it and also maybe expanding on how Con Ed might be coming out of this COVID-19, the impacts from it with small businesses in the future. And the question was, how has COVID-19 impacted projects underway? Is this defined as essential construction? And what are the mitigating variables?
So Sean, you're unmuted if you'd like to go ahead and address the question verbally for folks.
I'm
Great.
sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that we're working through every day. Our number one priority is the safety of our community, our workers, and our customers. So we have suspended temporarily all in-person work, any energy efficiency related work where you have to visit a customer's residence or a customer's business. We have suspended ultimately. We are still working with customers that want to do energy efficiency upgrades by way of virtual energy audits, and still trying to figure out a solution in the long run But as it stands right now, we just want to limit the spread of COVID. So we are not deeming the energy efficiency space as essential workforce as it relates to construction. And we are taking things day by day as we seek guidance from the state and the city, from the mayor and from the governor, as well as our corporate strategy. We still do have workers out there working on essential projects to help keep the system reliable and safe. And we're limiting it to that for now.
Great, good to hear. And we do have one more question for Ed, just to get all presenters in here. Ed, the question is, could you recap staffing, consultant capacity, and time dedicated to this project over its 2-year duration?
Yeah, I'll ask Kai to contribute as well, since he was one of the main providers of that area of expertise. But yeah, that component of the program probably consumed the least amount of time and the least amount of resources, because we basically had our 2 experts, subject matter experts in sustainability, work with those 16 clients, independently, through us, but independently. But the amount of time they spent with each varied depending on the size and nature of their industry or their business. And our feeling was we could and should be looking at ways to do more of technical assistance or consulting. But it's one of those things where, I think most businesses are still reluctant to get involved physically with somebody who represents something that the government might look upon as being necessary. So again, it gets back to that regulatory versus non-regulatory thing. But Kai, can you contribute here? Maybe I'm going off base.
No, well, besides the counseling that was done by the SBDC's counselors, they did the initial contact, they set up a report and evaluating the facility. Then at the end of the grant period, the Department of Environmental Protection actually went out and reevaluated these facilities to see what changes had been adopted from the recommendations provided by the counselors initially. So some of these had actually like a 4-year period of time, others had shorter. So some were as short as only 1 year. But at the end of this grant, we were able to identify any of the projects that were implemented on the basis of recommendation. So, but that took staff resources from the department of 3 people that were going out and visiting these 16 facilities at the end of the grant period. And there were, as Ed had mentioned, 2 counselors that were providing the initial evaluations.
All right. Thank you everyone for your answers. If we didn't get to them, please be sure to reach out to us or the presenters today. And with that, I'll pass it back to Walter, who will lead us in a good closing remarks.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I hope you enjoyed the day and the many great speakers we had today. I surely found it very informative and it was very inspirational. Again, as a reminder of our upcoming grant opportunities for the Pollution Prevention Program, the P2 program has a closing date of April 30th for that grant, and for the Source Reduction Assistance Grants, a closing date of May 15th, 2020. Also be aware of the P2 Hub helpline, which is available. And in addition, also realize that we have another grant opportunity, the SMM grants, which you can get access to those grants by going to grants.gov We're seeking applications that support the sustainable management of organic waste and C&D debris in EPA Region 2. Applications are due April 17th for that particular event. Also, be sure to reach out and leverage the available information on EPA's Energy Star program. And remember to complete the post-webinar survey. In closing, there are many people who argue that a crisis can trigger regression, disasters, but it can also awaken creation and imagination and invention. And I think you see 4 examples today of people working through crisis prior to this event that we're addressing in the larger picture of a sustainability crisis. And they've been able to put together very powerful examples of how you can use corporate strategy to advance sustainability and also the importance of transformational leadership. This is an important element of human nature that we can say as we sit here today, that even in the darkest days, for some, hope springs eternal. And it is the hope that through our actions and our faith and commitment to making a difference, we can create a more sustainable world. So I thank the audience as well as those who have presented today for your faith and commitment to make a difference. Hope springs eternal. On behalf of EPA Region 2, the Pollution Prevention Program, Sustainable Materials Management Program, and our national office, we hope you have found the presentation of interest. Please look for the notification and follow-up email after this webinar for a short survey on the webinar today. Thank you again. Stay healthy, be thoughtful, creative, and above all, be peaceful. Have a good day.